Senate Democrats could soon put legislation to a vote that is aimed at establishing a nationwide right to in vitro fertilization. Reproductive rights have been a major point of contention between Republicans and Democrats as of late. Earlier this year in Alabama, the state's Supreme Court declared frozen embryos are considered children under state law. CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion is on Capitol Hill. So, Nikole, why are Senate Democrats focusing on reproductive rights?
Well, this is really about messaging. Democrats feel that this is a galvanizing issue in terms of reproductive rights and reproductive health care. Of course, timing is also part of this as well in terms of the second anniversary of the Dobbs decision overturning Roe versus Wade. And so that is why, in particular, kind of in the run-up to that, Senate Democrats really want to keep the focus on this issue. So last week, for instance, we saw them hold a vote trying to codify protections for birth control and to ensure federal protections for birth control access. That measure ultimately ended up failing because it was primarily on party lines. Only 2 Republicans supported it. But similarly, Senate Democrats are moving forward this week with that IVF measure to, again, try to codify protections for fertility treatments. And that, as you mentioned, coming on the heels of that controversial decision by the Alabama Supreme Court. Obviously, we saw the state of Alabama move forward with its own law to provide more legal protections, but now lawmakers want to try to codify those on a federal level as well.
What are you hearing from the Republicans there on why that contraception bill failed? Is it they want it to be given to the states, and do you expect a similar argument to be made for an IVF bill?
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, look, many Republicans feel to the point that I just made, the Democrats are really trying to use this as a political issue. And so, quite frankly, I mean, in terms of the contraceptive bill that was offered up last week, Republicans had an alternative and they wanted that measure advanced, or at least amendments to be allowed. And so because that didn't really occur, then you had many Republicans, again, feeling that Democrats are primarily doing this for political reasons. They also argued that the legislation, for instance, that was put forth last week was overly broad, and that for the most part, women are able to access birth control. So they didn't feel that this was a pressing issue that had to be settled now, and that, yes, ultimately, in many instances, they feel that this is a decision that should continue to be up to states. But that being said, we will see how the IVF vote plays out this week. Likely, we will once again kind of see this fracture along party lines, although we do know that there are some Republicans out there who do understand the importance of protecting these fertility treatments. But again, whether or not they support this legislation going forward remains to be seen.
Okay, and House Republicans are expected to move forward with a resolution to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. Do they have the votes?
Well, that also remains to be seen as well. I mean, look, I talked to Chairman Jim Jordan last week, head of the House Judiciary Committee, who held that very contentious hearing that we saw with the Attorney General, where we heard the Attorney General press back and push back against these threats of contempt, saying that he does consider this a serious matter, but at the same time feels that, there's no legitimate purpose for House Republicans to move forward with this. But Chairman Jordan did tell me he felt that the votes were there. We obviously are seeing this being moved this week, with the Rules Committee expected to meet Tuesday on it, which means that will likely tee up a floor vote at some point later in the week.
Nikole, thank you.